Hello, Dr. Chambers. This is my presentation for Chapter 7. I have to limit it to 7 to 15 minutes in order to be able to upload it to YouTube and be able to share it with you. So I apologize if I speak rather fast during the presentation. I've also taken, I'm assuming I would be presenting in front of a group of colleagues or fellow students, so therefore I will be interacting with an imaginary audience if that's okay. Hello, this is the presentation for Chapter 7, Software for Teacher Tasks. And in it, I will be addressing what software is available for teachers in order for us to be more efficient and productive at our tasks, our day-to-day tasks. When we're looking at software for teacher tasks, we have to consider that there's actually two components to administrative software. One of them is productivity software, and the other is classroom management software. So before we get started and actually talk about these things, can you think of some applications or software packages that you're familiar with that would fall in one of these categories? Well, I definitely heard some names there of some of these. Here's a little table that kind of shows you what's available, and this is a somewhat limited um, table. There's definitely a lot more software packages out there or applications that fit into these categories. But I've also broken it down by platforms because sometimes that is a factor. Schools either work on a Windows-based system or platform or on a Mac-based, and more nowadays people are just switching over to web-based or mobile device based with things like Chromebooks and things of that nature. For productivity purposes, you'll hear the names that you're very familiar with: Microsoft Office, which has all sorts of applications; OpenOffice, which is free and doesn't require um, payment of purchase or site licenses, basically. Um, iWork, and now Google Apps, which is basically the cutting edge of productivity tools, which are all web-based or mobile device-based. Um, for classroom management purposes, there's a number of companies that provide these services that include gradebooks and attendance takers and things of that nature. Um, for me, it's probably more important to actually find things that I can use independent of whatever my school offers. So I've used things like Remind to communicate with parents more efficiently. Class Dojo is very popular, especially in middle school and elementary school environments where classroom behavior can be managed through this app. Um, so let's talk a little bit about productivity software. What is it? What does it do? It's basically, it was designed for the business world, but it fits very well within our educational world as teachers and school administrators. And its sole purpose is to make humans more productive through the application of technology. Um, Most software suites include a variety of applications that deal with different components of productivity, whether they're word processors, spreadsheets, data management systems, presentation software, or email communication programs. Many of these you probably would recognize names for them, things like Word and Excel and PowerPoint. If we're looking at these applications and technology and what the expectations are, we have to also assume that teachers have a certain degree of responsibility in their use of these applications and these tools. And I personally believe that every teacher should have a certain level of software literacy. You really cannot get by without interacting with these tools in order to be more productive and more efficient. So here are some examples of things that I would expect teachers to be able to do. Now, some of them may seem a little extreme, like creating budgets and tracking expenses, because that usually doesn't fall into a teacher responsibility. But if you apply for a grant, for example, this is something that you would have to be able to do, and where some of these tools would be really helpful. Or if you replace the word budgets with inventories, that that's just as applicable to those situations. So I'm going to address the different four different tools that are available. I'll start with word processing. And most of us know these names already. We've heard of Word and Pages. Maybe you're not as familiar with OpenOffice's Writer, but basically it does everything the Microsoft Word can do. And the purpose of these is basically to create documents, be able to edit them and format them. They're to manipulate the text in ways that the message, the content contained within these documents is best suited for the audience, and eventually to be able to publish them in a way, whether it's digitally through a PDF or whether it's actually by providing hard copies for students or colleagues. That is the function of word processors. The fact that you can enhance documents with graphics and tables and images is just another plus to this very powerful tool. When it comes to spreadsheets, these don't tend to be quite as popular. The most teachers tend to use these for storage of data, be able to alphabetize the student list, keeping, as I said, keeping inventories would be a really good use of this. But we also have to be aware that that spreadsheets can do a lot more. There's a number of mathematical formulas that are already part of these applications that can actually be very helpful in the day-to-day aspects or requirements of a teacher, whether it's calculating averages for a test or whether it's something as complicated as looking for a standard deviation or perhaps even a what-if scenario of a student has one more test to take, what type of grade do they have to get to the next grade band, things of that nature. So these are extremely helpful in my estimation, and I do use them regularly in my work life. Database management features are probably not as popular, and I definitely don't use them. These, you can think of them as spreadsheets on steroids. They're far more complicated to use. They're very powerful. They can actually handle a lot of data, and they're perfect for generating records and reports and very complicated tasks that are very data rich. The reason why they're not all that popular is because most of us as teachers are already provided with some sort of system on our school computers to do a lot of these tasks. When we take attendance, when we enter grades, when we look up demographics for a certain student, we're actually using a database management system. It's just not one that we created ourselves. So that's why we don't necessarily see them as being all that powerful and valuable. On the other hand, presentation software, at least for me, is probably one of the most powerful applications in the productivity suite. And that's because of the visual power that they bring into enhancing the learning experience. And for many students, this is the way they learn best, by hearing things, by seeing things, by even the transitions from one slide to another can be meaningful to a student, and or can be that spark that wakes a kid up to accept more input. So I really think this is something that all teachers should be able to use, and that it should be just more than just presenting content in a different way. That you really do have to try to use it in its at its full capacity, and try to embed that multimedia content that makes learning much more meaningful, as well as hyperlinking things in order to save time. So let's reflect and do a little brainstorming. I'm going to ask you to just take a minute to think and share some innovative ways in which you've used these type of productivity tools, and also if as pre-service and in-service teachers, if you had an opportunity to ask a programmer to change something in a productivity tool, add something that's missing, what would it be? What would you like to see in the next version of some of these programs? So those were great ideas. Let's talk a little bit about classroom management, because classroom management basically software is designed to kind of make our experience in those administrative tasks a little bit easier. So the day-to-day tasks that we have to do, whether it's taking attendance, creating seating charts, printing a roster out for a substitute because you won't be there the next day, entering grades, calculating grades, averages, dropping grades without to see what effect that would have on a student's overall grade. All those things are usually taken care of by programs that our districts have purchased for us. Interestingly, um, these traditionally used to be client-based programs that you would have to update in an asynchronous manner, and most of them have switched over, if not all of them, have switched over to web-based, where you actually have real-time updates, which is very important for teachers and for schools and the management of schools. Also in this category are online tools, which I'm extremely excited about because I really believe that this is the new cutting edge. Companies like Google that put out Google Apps, especially their Google Apps for Education suite, are really changing the world. The way in which students can now interact with one another and with their teachers is so different. And the fact that collaboration can happen in real time, not having to email documents back and forth to one another as it used to be, is really changing things around. So what I'd like to do is maybe talk a little bit about some of these. I've put some logos of different online tools that I use and like, and hopefully I'll have time here to show you how I use one of them very quickly, but they really don't have enough time to cover everything. But Google Apps, as I said, is extremely powerful. Just the whole collaborative aspect of it is so impressive. Prezi is an interesting way to do presentations that are web-based and not application-based. Dropbox allows you to share basically all sorts of documents with any other Dropbox user. Things like Blackboard and Moodle, which are content management systems. Class Dojo, which allows a teacher to track student behavior and rewards them and communicate with parents, is very powerful. As a foreign language teacher, I use Duolingo as a way to not just enhance the vocabulary of my students, but also see their progress and motivate them to do more. MailChimp and Remind both help teachers in that very important communication with parents. So these are very powerful tools, as I said. The last task that I'm going to ask you to do is to basically go out on your own and share or find some things that you find innovative and share them with a group. But before we do that, I want to close by going very quickly to something. I want to show you something that I use regularly, and that is Google Apps. And for example, this is a Google Doc, and one of the nice things that can happen here is that I can share, or the students can share their document with me. I can preview it, and since I'm not in the editing mode, but in the suggesting mode, I can actually make real suggestions to their document while it's still a draft. So if I find a mistake, if I find something that just doesn't sound right or something that's missing, I can add it directly to their document, and they can either choose to accept it or delete it. For example, this is a great way to open a letter. So in Spanish, I could tell them that this is a great beginning for a letter. Okay, and they actually see this real time, just as it happens. They can check it. They can see it's a suggestion because it has the green box and the little green lines around it, and they can either choose to accept it or delete it. In this case, it's a suggestion, so they can just get rid of it. But it could have been a correction, for example. So this is just one of the many things you can do. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to cut this short. And please take the next 3 or 4 minutes to do a little searching and sharing with your colleagues. And thank you for your attention.